Hi everyone, hope you're well. Wanted to put out a video with some thoughts to wrap up the course. I'll mention some items about the final exam a little bit as well. And if my voice sounds a little bit weird, I'm kind of ending the semester with a little bit of sickness. It's not COVID, thankfully, but it is a little bit of a sickness. So anyway, hopefully you can hear me okay. All right, so let's see if we can get this going. So I'll kind of spend a few minutes reviewing the course, and I'll talk about the final exam, and then have a couple of comments about the evaluations for the course. So some objectives that we started off with was develop an introductory understanding of basically the work of external and internal auditors, and let's see how, this is meant to be an introduction to audit, right? And so let's see how we address that during the course. So one thing you can think about is from the aspect of what kind of tools do you need to be a good auditor. Some of these things you get from other courses, right? Like financial accounting knowledge, that's from your intermediate courses. Screen just went blank. Hopefully I didn't lose you. Knowledge of governance structures and incentives. We talked a little bit about that, but you'll talk more about that in the graduate program. Effective communication skills. We mainly did it from a writing perspective. In the past, I've had groups kind of present up front, but that didn't seem like the way to go this semester. But at the very least, working on how to craft reports was something that we did. Being a good team player is necessary. Just about every audit I've ever been a part of, actually every audit I've ever been a part of in terms of the engagement, had an engagement team, right? And so you had to learn how to work alongside others. Sometimes people you got along with really well, sometimes people you didn't. And figuring out how to make it work, given whatever situation you find yourself in, I've always thought is really important. And so, some other skills you need: management accounting knowledge if you're going to look at especially manufacturing type engagements or other engagements where they're applying any cost methods to come up with different estimates. Professional skepticism is one of the major characteristics you need, because managers have a set of assertions and you're basically going to say, okay, let's test those assertions, right? Trust but verify, kind of, to borrow an old phrase. I'm not going to disbelieve you at first, but I just want to see the evidence. Knowledge of auditing standards. Well, we didn't specifically go through auditing standards in terms of specific standards, and we did talk about things that were in the auditing standards in terms of how to do the audit, ethics rules and independence rules, or at least concepts. And so while you may not know specific standards, we definitely talked about things that are covered in the standards. Excuse me. And then lastly, the group projects largely were focused on trying to develop these analytical mindset or analytical skills in terms of, okay, we have a question, right? We want to get comfort around an audit objective, right? Let's say revenue. So we want to make sure that all revenue is earned. In our project, we wanted to look to see, is all revenue that's been recorded in the invoice table, for example, was there a valid shipment? And for all invoices, was there a valid customer, right? Those kinds of things. And so basically, how can we bring data to bear on these audit questions? All right, see if I can go forward now. Oh. Okay, so we largely split this up into, you can think about this in 4 different categories in terms of our coverage. First category is really around the environment that audits are operating in. We first talked about the demand for auditing and how information asymmetry really drives the demand for auditing, right? Information symmetry between a preparer of information and a user. How can the user trust the preparer, the information they provide? Well, one way they can start trusting it is if you get a third-party auditor to come in and audit the information. Right, the information asymmetry is really important. And we talked about standards in terms of what standards would apply for a given audit engagement. You know what? Oops, sorry. You know, what domain does the company reside in, and then are they publicly traded or not, right? Those kind of things dictate which set of standards you need to follow. Talked about legal liability, especially around independence. Or excuse me, we talked about legal liability, especially in regards to, you know, common law versus code law, the different sections that of the SEC Act that would impact legal liability, and how that is a major driver of a set of incentives for auditors. Then we talked about ethics and especially like independence rules and principles, and so that kind of rounded out our environment category. Then we talked about kind of generally how to do the audit in terms of what kind of evidence can we collect, what kind of testing can we do, how do we go about planning the audit, the different stages of the audit plan, or excuse me, of the audit. Talked about internal controls at a high level, talked about IT audit in that section, and actually talked about analytics too. I left that out of this section, but we talked about analytics in this kind of general auditing portion. Then we spent time going through the specific transaction cycles. How do we take that general auditing framework and apply it to the different significant accounts? And then we kind of wrapped up the course with thinking about audit reports, integrated audits, and then time on the internal audit, operational auditing, and compliance auditing, right? To kind of show how this general framework that we spent time learning applies in different settings, right? Which is this figure that I've come back to over and over again, which is this three-party relationship between the assurance professional, the accountable party, and the user, and how you can basically, you're going to change the details, right, from a financial reporting audit or financial statement audit to an operational audit to a compliance audit, but this general process still holds for all those categories. And a lot of times we spent thinking about, when we're talking about testing the transaction cycles, kind of let's take those 6 assertions that are at the financial statement level, let's apply them to accounts to get audit objectives, and then let's think about the business cycle, understanding internal control, to think about the risks that are present, and then do we want to test controls and put reliance on those controls to give us assurance, or do we want to put more focus on substantive testing? And we also talked about how that substantive testing drives or is driven by detection risk, allowable detection risk, and then that determines the nature, the timing, and the extent of substantive testing. And so we spent time understanding this generally, and then obviously applying it for each of those transaction cycles. All right, so that kind of wraps up that part. Hopefully, you know, these general framework ideas, right? These last kind of general framework for how we do things. Hopefully, that is going to stick with you, right? That's my goal. I don't expect you to necessarily understand or remember really every single test, for example, for how you test, you know, inventory, because I just doubt you'll be able to remember that, and that's not the point. The point is, you know, understanding the framework for how you're going to do this process, apply this process in different settings, and so, you know, if you go and audit different industries, then the details will look different, but this similar process hopefully will help you know how to navigate these different areas. So the final exam, there's the times there for each section. The 11:30 is on Tuesday the 14th. The 1 o'clock is on Thursday the 16th. Those are times set by the registrar in the registrar's office. I have no control over those times. Those are the times that are given to us. Yeah, it's late. It's late in the semester, I understand, but those are the times we have. So we have technically a 2.5 hour block, but an hour and a half will be plenty for us. And it is optional. And some students have asked about that, but optional just means that it will be included in the exam portion of your grade, which represents 40% of your grade. And so you can put it, you basically, let's say there's 400 points right now, that makes up 40%. Well, you take the final, and let's say you had 300 points out of 400 initially, and you take the final and you get, an 80, or let's say you get a 90. So now you have 390 points. Well, I would take that 390 out of 500, and I don't remember, I can't do that math quite that fast, but you basically take 390 over 500, and whatever percentage that is, that's going to be weighted by that 40% that the exams are worth, right? So you have an opportunity to increase the amount that the exams are contributing to your final grade. And most of the time, and you can run the numbers once we kind of finalize all the grades. Most of the time, you have to be pretty close for the final exam to make a lot of sense. If you have like an 85, I don't think there's much chance that even getting 100 would probably raise your grade to an A. So you need to be mindful about that. See how close you are and see what grade you'll have to get in order to raise your grade to the next letter. So I'm going to send out a quiz here this week, and you'll basically have to confirm whether you're going to take the final or not. I prefer everybody fill it out so I kind of have a sense of how many people have responded versus not. But it'll be due by Sunday at midnight. And the reason is, if no one wants to take it, then I'm not gonna give it, right? So now, even if just one person wants to take it, I'll give it. That's fine, and it makes sense. But I just would like to know if you're gonna take it or not. So if you don't respond to that, then I'm not gonna expect that you're gonna take it. And it is in person, so we'll have I'll probably post more details about. I think it's in our same classroom, but I'll have to double check. Obviously no notes or anything, same kind of rules apply. The format is cumulative in the sense of it's all topics, and I'll show in a minute the learning objectives, but it's all multiple choice. And the reason is I want to get it graded quickly and get it incorporated into your grade quickly. If you want to talk about anything over office hours, we can. Just send me an email. We'll set an appointment. Same strategies as before. And so if you look at the learning objective priorities, I'm only going to focus on the high learning objectives. So it's not cumulative in the sense of it's all possible learning objectives. It's cumulative in the sense that every topic is going to be covered, but I'm only going to take out those high learning objectives. And so that should cut down a good bit on your amount that you need to study. And so, and I've even kind of highlighted here higher priority versus higher focus versus next highest focus, right? Using these stars. So basically the transaction cycles are going to have a high level of focus as well as the audit analytics topic. Then the next highest focus is the general auditing process, right? The audit planning and audit evidence, internal controls, that kind of thing. IT audit is in there as well. And so, and then all the other topics, all the other chapters, would be kind of, lower down in terms of focus on the exam. So I'll post this. You'll have this available to you. But this is what we're going to be, what will be covered on the final exam. Okay. All right. Last couple things here for evaluations. Please use this link. They're due by Thursday night, this Thursday, before final exam week starts. So please take some time and fill those out. I definitely appreciate it when you take time to do that. And to the extent that number can get higher, then that's always good, because then I have a better sense that it's a representative sample, right? If I have low turnout or turnout rates for the evaluations, then there's some question of how representative the results are, right? So we talked a little bit about sampling bias before, and that's essentially what I'm trying to avoid. And so, as close as we can get to 100%, then the better. And take it from the perspective of, hey, if you had a friend that was going to take this next year, or even in the spring, what kind of things would you want me to change, right? What kind of things did you appreciate? What things do you want me to keep? What things do you think were less helpful? And so I'd appreciate that feedback. And then lastly, just thank you. I always enjoy getting to know individual students. I don't teach. I always say I don't teach a class. I teach students. And so I've appreciated getting to know some of you. Obviously, others of you didn't see as often, but definitely appreciate the chance that I did have to get to know those of you that I did. So hope you're doing well, and hope you finish off the semester well. But it's been a pleasure. All right, and if there's anything I can do in the future, please let me know to help you along in your career. All right, all the best. Bye now.